Welcome to an introduction to educational research. This is for teachers. And this video is designed to give you an introduction to the sequence of courses that are involved in getting your master's degree, the research courses, and also to give you a sort of a broad picture of what this particular course is going to look like. By the way, here is the textbook. It's Mertler, 2009, and it's on action research, teachers as researchers in the classroom. And here's the publication information and the ISBN number. And I think it runs, you can get it for about $20 to $30 used. It's a small paperback textbook, so it won't kill you. It's very, very useful, very helpful. It'll be helpful throughout your entire research courses. Well, let's take a look at then what you're going to encounter. So this is the master's degree research course sequence and course products. And just as a general overview, at the end of the 3 different courses that you will take for your research component of your master's degree, you will wind up with a thesis or a field project, which we'll discuss thoroughly in a little bit, which will consist of 4 chapters, chapters 1, 2, 3, and 4. So there are 3 courses in your research sequence. The first course is this course, EDU 710. Actually, the EDU may have changed, but it's 710, Introduction to Research for Educators. And we'll go over the course objectives and stuff like that in a minute. But at the end of this course, you will be required to produce your Chapter 1 research or field project proposal, whichever you decide to do. So that's this course. Then the next course in the sequence is EDU 716, which is the review of the literature, where you will write your Chapter 2 of your thesis or field project. And that will be your chapter on your review of the literature. And the third course is your thesis project seminar, and there you will meet and you will write your chapters 3 and 4. So when you are done with the entire 3-course sequence, you will have completed a master's thesis or field project with your chapters 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, here's a course description and the objectives, and please forgive me, but I'm just going to read them. So this course will provide an overview of qualitative, quantitative, single case, and action research methods commonly used in the area of education and related social science fields. Now, you might not know what qualitative research is, or you might, or quantitative or single case or action research, but by the end of this course you will. You'll be very familiar with them. The course is designed to help you critically read, evaluate, and design educational research. So you will be you'll be reading educational research, you'll be evaluating it, and you'll actually be designing your research thesis or your field project, whichever you decide to do. And again, we'll talk about that in a minute. Your learning objectives: upon completion of this course, you should be able to demonstrate an understanding of the basic principles of scientific inquiry as they relate to educational research, demonstrate the ability to locate peer-reviewed journal articles, books, and documents on a specific topic. By the way, peer-reviewed is journal articles. That's a very important concept. I would imagine by now you know what peer-reviewed journal articles are. But they're articles, research articles, that come from journals. When the article is submitted to the journal, copies are sent out to experts in the field without any name on it. So the experts who read it and make recommendations as to whether it should be published or not published don't know who wrote the article or where it came from. That's peer-reviewed, and that's very, very important. You want to try and stay away from a lot of stuff on the internet unless it comes from university and research-based backing. Another objective, demonstrate an understanding of the strengths and limitations of different research methodologies, and we'll be going over a bunch of those. Be able to appropriately cite and reference journal articles, internet sources, books, etc., using the publication manual of the American Psychological Association. This is a book, if you're into the master's program, the APA, American Psychological Association publication manual is absolutely should be in your, you should have it. Now, I went online, and you'll see here below is a screenshot of their online website. So this is the American Psychological Association, their website, and you can order the book from that. And I think that was about $20 or $30. Now here is, I just Googled the APA manual, and I got a Barnes & Noble site. Here you can get it for $10. That's a deal, because this will be very, very helpful for you throughout all of your 3 research classes. And finally, here's a website I found. This is a PDF file. This is the entire manual online. You can type in that URL and you can get access to the entire manual online for free. So those are some resources, but this, you definitely should have a copy of this, the APA manual. Okay, so that's it. Now, 5, demonstrate an understanding of the basis of how to conduct research and education using the qualitative, quantitative, single case or action research methods, and you'll know how to do that. And then to complete chapter 1 of your master's thesis field or field project, whichever you decide to do, in the form of a research proposal. And I'll explain that also. All right, so now let's take a look. Okay, master's thesis or field project. And by the way, this URL, if you type that in, it's a long URL, but if you type that in, it'll take you to a Google document that has, I think, about 10 or 12 examples of former students' master's thesis or field projects. A thesis, okay. A thesis uses a scientific inquiry to answer a research question or area of inquiry. So a thesis is an actual scientific study. It includes a systematic methodology for examining a problem. The thesis statement is clearly stated. So it's looking to show some kind of a cause-effect relationship. It's a scientific study. Here are some examples. The use of constant time delay strategy to teach single-digit multiplication facts. So this study is trying to see how effective this constant time delay strategy is in teaching single-digit multiplication facts. The effects of positive reinforcement on in-seat behavior of a student with autism. Well, this is a study taking a look at how effective is positive reinforcement on the in-seat behavior of a student with autism. Here are some examples of theses that students have done already. By the way, what you're going to see here, when you finish your 3 research courses, you will put together a poster like this, which is it's very easy. You get a template. The university will give you a template for it, and you'll produce a big poster like this. So here are examples of, these are theses. The effects of social story strategies on social skills of high school students with intellectual disabilities. So this is a scientific study. It's looking at the effects of social story strategies on social skills of high school students with disabilities. So that's a scientific study. Here's another example of a thesis. The effects of digital tools on developing literacy skills in middle school students and their impact on acquiring language arts common core standards. So again, this is another study, scientific study, looking at the effects of digital tools on developing literary skills. Here's an example of another thesis. An assessment of community attitudes and behavior to inclusion of youth with disabilities in youth sport and recreational activities. Well, this was a scientific study, a thesis, that used a survey methodology. which is sort of part of a descriptive research, but it's absolutely a scientific study. Here is an example of another thesis. Can students differentiate their own instruction? Oh, I know this one. I was the lead person that worked with this student on this one. So this was a study to see if students could differentiate their own instruction. So these are all examples of theses. And again, a thesis is a scientific study, and it uses a very specific methodology for examining an area of inquiry or a problem. Now, a project, it can be almost anything, produces a product to address or solve an educational problem, dilemma, or need. By the way, there is a dilemma about spelling the word dilemma. It's spelled both ways with two M's or an M and an N. So, a field project is what could be anything that addresses an educational problem. The project objectives, outcomes are identified using an action research cycle, which we'll talk about. Now, some students have developed websites which share special information on a topic, in-service training modules, parent awareness training modules, computer software to address educational problems. These are all examples, and I'll show you some student examples. Building awareness of the connection between good nutrition and student success, a workshop for preschool families. So this student put together a workshop for families as their field project. Here's another example of transformative teacher leadership. And this student put together a teacher training for her school and district as part of her field project. Here's another example. Bring your own device, policy making and implementation. And this student put together a technology plan for her school to increase their technology use and to put in place policies. Here is another example. Strategies for successful transition to college for students with Asperger's syndrome. And this student put together a parent handbook as a resource for parents. That was their field project. So those are examples of projects, and those were examples of theses. Now, there are some alternative ones. You can do an extended literature review. Now, on the surface, this looks like fairly easy. However, this is really a strenuous academic task. And you'll be reading tons and tons of articles and having to synthesize and put it together. So it's no easy task, but certainly a legitimate one. You can submit a journal article for publication. And if let's suppose you did a thesis and then you did a scientific study and you wanted to submit it for publication, that certainly would be acceptable. Or you can develop and submit a grant. You can develop software. There's all different kinds of alternative ways. And you can, if you have some new ideas that are not being presented here, you can discuss that with your professor. And they'll be very open to that. So that's the distinction between a thesis, which is a scientific study, and a field project. And those are examples of them. All right, let's continue on here. Okay, so what you're going to have to do throughout this entire process, and actually the process starts right now because you need to start in on it right now. You need to start thinking about areas of inquiry. What are you interested in doing? And the trick is you need to come from a big, big picture. You need to funnel down in a very logical manner and build a logic chain from the big picture all the way down to your very specific question. So let me use, if I may, my doctoral dissertation. My doctorate is in special education. And so what I did is I wrote a piece of software and developed a remote control device, but I'll explain it. So the big picture was the signature component of the Individuals with Disability Act, which was passed in 75 and implemented in 77, which is a long time ago, is that each student has an IEP, and part of it is that the IEP contains broad goals and specific objectives to reach these goals. So that was one component of IDEA when it was initiated. However, no guidelines were offered by the law to measure or monitor progress towards these goals and objectives. Now, research indicates that when goals and objectives are monitored and measured, when you collect data on student performance in terms of goals and objectives, their performance increases dramatically, actually. Now, teachers generally, the research shows that teachers generally do not collect direct observational data on performance because either they lack the training or the knowledge on how to do it, or it's way too time-consuming, they have enough to do, or they don't see a need, they think they can already do that. But the research indicated that no, they can't. We don't do that very well. In really extreme cases where the kid is just superior, we're able to recognize that, or the kid is very, very deficient, we're able to recognize that. But in those middle areas, we're not very good at it. Now, I did my dissertation in the early 90s, so that's quite a while ago. So recent developments at that time in technology were able to assist teachers in collecting and analyzing direct observational data. But the technology at the time, although it was helpful, it left the person who was collecting the data sort of chained to the computer keyboard. They had to be at the keyboard. So what I did for my dissertation is then I wrote software and developed a remote control data collection device, much like a mouse, only about the size of a credit card, that a teacher could carry around in their pocket and walk around teaching and go about their business teaching and just click on this and it would automatically send the signals to the computer. By the way, the computer didn't even have to be in the same room as the teacher. In some instances, the computer could have been out in the car in a parking lot. But it allowed then a teacher to correct direct observational data, and it summarized that data and saved it, and you could print it out and stuff like that. The point is not my dissertation. The point is it started out with a very big idea about the special education law. And it took a particular part of that law about goals and objectives, and it funneled down logically that these goals and objectives, if they're monitored, students in special ed would perform much better. And then teachers are not monitoring them for very good reasons. And then it talked about there's technologies that can help, but the technologies limit whoever is collecting the data to being in front of the keyboard, all the way down to developing a remote control device and software. So that's called the logic chain, and that's what you'll do with whatever your area of inquiry is. You'll come from the big picture all the way down logically to your specific area of inquiry. And you will put citations all along the way for each step in your logic chain. You will back it up with citations from existing research. Okay, so that's the big picture, and that's the logic chain. Now let's get down to the nitty-gritty. Okay, now, it would really be helpful, I hope I have already emailed to you a copy of the Master's Thesis Field Project Manual. If you have that, it would be very helpful to get it while we're going through this piece. Okay, components of the Master's Thesis or Field Project. So all of this needs to be included whether you're doing a thesis or a field project. You'll have a title page with no page number, and if you look on page 25 in your Master's Thesis Field Project Handbook, there is the title page. You just need to copy it exactly as it is. It's a boilerplate. Your second page will be your signature page, and that's on page 26 in the Master's Thesis Field Project Handbook, so all you need to do is copy that. Your third page is your author's release and permission to use form, and that's on page 27 in the handbook. So those first 3 pages, you can just type them into a Word document and you're already started on your chapter 1. Then you'll need a page for an abstract. So you can, in your document, put a blank page, put abstract up in the top middle, and then leave it blank. You have a page for acknowledgments, and this is optional. If you want to do an acknowledgment, you can put that in. Then you'll have a page for table of contents, and including any appendix or appendices you might have. And here you will begin numbering with lowercase Roman numerals. I is number 1, II is number 2, and so on. You'll have a list of tables. You'll have a page in case you use any kind of data tables that you're going to have. You'll have a list of figures in case you have any graphics or figures. That's another page. All of this will be whether you're doing a thesis or a field project. All of this needs to be included in your chapter 1. Now, if you're doing a thesis, chapter 1, take a look at pages 6 to 8 in your handbook. It outlines exactly what you should be doing, and it gives you all of these different subdivisions. You'll have an introduction section. You'll have a statement of a problem and need. You'll have a background and theoretical rationale. You'll have your a section for your research question or hypothesis. You'll have a section on methodology. You'll have a section on limitations, definition of terms, summary, and your reference section in the APA format, American Psychological Association format. So if you're doing a thesis, this is your chapter 1 with the subsections of chapter 1. And it's all outlined on pages 6 to 8. Tells you exactly what to do. Now, if you're doing a project as opposed to a thesis, you want to look at pages 8 and 9 in your handbook. You'll have an introduction, same as the thesis. You'll have a statement of the problem. That's the same. You'll have background and theoretical rationale. That's the same as if you were doing a thesis. But then you'll have the purpose of your project objectives, how your project objectives will specifically be assessed, definition of terms, a summary, and your references. So if you're doing a project, your chapter, this is what should be in your chapter 1, and these are the subheadings, and they are outlined on pages 8 and 9 in your Master's Thesis Field Project Handbook. Well, okay, so that will be your chapter 1. And we will be discussing this as we meet and stuff, but I wanted to give you an overview. Don't panic, some points to consider. So you may be concerned, how is it possible that you're going to cover the course content and develop a research or field project proposal in the span of 1 semester? And if you're taking it in the summer, it's even way more condensed. Okay, keep this in mind. The task is going through the research process, demonstrating that you know how to go through the research process. And so you're not doing a doctoral dissertation and a beautiful formatted research proposal or anything like that. You need to demonstrate that you know how to do research. And this course will present you with an action research model. In fact, the textbook is on action research. Learning the process of designing and conducting action research is much more important than the final product that you produce. I mean, you want to do your best and your most scholarly work, but learning the process is the critical piece. Now, the action research process generally consists of only 4 steps. Identify, and limiting an area of focus. So that's what we were talking about, going from the big picture logically down to your area of focus, collecting data, analyzing and interpreting the data, and then developing a plan that to implement your area of inquiry. If you can become familiar in designing and implementing an action research project, you will have met the goal of the course, and you will be prepared to carry this process over into your teaching career. So relax, start to give some thought to some areas of inquiry you might like to examine. You cannot start that process too early. You need to, as soon as you stop listening to this, you need to start thinking about, what areas am I interested in? What am I interested in looking at, and how might I go about looking at them? Now, there is an assignment attached to this video, and this is the assignment. And I will actually email you a Word document exactly like this, or you can use this. You can type up your own Word document where you can just enter the document and fill in your responses. You will need your master's thesis handbook and field project handbook to complete part of this assignment, to complete questions 8 through 12. Well, that's it. That is the overview of the sequence of courses in your master's thesis field project and your march towards your master's degree. And this particular class, the intro course, is the course that you will produce your Chapter 1, your research proposal. Thank you very much, and I'm really looking forward to working with you. By the way, any comments or anything like that, please just email me. The email address is on the last page of this video. Thank you again.